Hello, everyone. Tonight we are dimming the lights, settling into that perfect pillow indent, and taking a journey not just into the past, but into the sun-baked, sand-swept land of ancient Egypt. Imagine, if you will, the towering pyramids silhouetted against a fiery sunset, the shimmering waters of the Nile reflecting hieroglyphs carved into ancient temples, and the eerie quiet of a desert tomb awaiting discovery. You're there, a humble observer in a world ruled by beings believed to be living gods, where monumental stone structures rose from the sands defying logic and time. Let's be real. You probably won't survive a day in ancient Egypt without accidentally offending a deity, getting swept away by the Nile, or becoming a sacrifice to a temperamental pharaoh. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's embark on tonight's journey together. You find yourself transported not just to a different time, but to a profoundly different way of understanding leadership, religion, and the very fabric of existence. The world of the Egyptian pharaohs is one of immense power, baffling ritual, and a relentless focus on the afterlife. Their reign spanned millennia, a period so vast it makes the entire history of many modern nations seem like a fleeting moment. This wasn't just a political system. It was a cosmic order with the pharaoh at its very center, a mortal bridge between the divine and the earthly realms. Historians still debate whether the earliest forms of Egyptian kingship truly had a single unified origin or evolved from various regional chieftains. Our story, like the mighty Nile itself, begins far upriver in the primordial mists of pre-dynastic Egypt, a land divided into two distinct regions: Upper Egypt in the south. Confusing, I know, because the Nile flows north. So, upper means upriver, and Lower Egypt in the north. These were separate kingdoms, each with its own traditions, symbols, and rulers. The landscape, however, dictated much of their lives. The Nile, a benevolent serpent of water, brought life to a narrow strip of fertile land, contrasting sharply with the vast, unforgiving desert that stretched on either side. You can almost feel the dry desert air on your skin, followed by the sudden lushness of the riverbanks. This geographical duality, the black land, Kemet of fertile soil, and the red land, Deshret of barren desert, was deeply ingrained in their worldview and their understanding of life and death. One authoritative historical fact is that the fertile Nile Valley, approximately 12 miles wide, supported the vast majority of ancient Egypt's population, making control of its resources paramount for any aspiring ruler. Here's a quirky fact. Early Egyptians actually kept pet crocodiles, sometimes even dressing them in jewelry. Now that's a security system with a real bite. You probably wouldn't survive asking one for a belly rub. Their fascination with animals, both wild and domestic, permeated every aspect of their lives, from their deities to their daily existence. Before the concept of a single all-powerful pharaoh, these regions were ruled by local chieftains, often warring amongst themselves for control of resources, particularly the vital floodwaters of the Nile. The need for a unified system to manage the annual inundation, the lifeblood of Egypt, likely played a huge role in the eventual push towards a single centralized authority. It makes you wonder if our modern-day water management systems, for all their complexity, are just echoes of these ancient needs, doesn't it? So as we cast our gaze back to these fragmented beginnings, we lay the groundwork for the emergence of the figure who would define an entire civilization, the pharaoh. His, or sometimes her, ascent would not only unite the land, but usher in an era of unprecedented monument-building spiritual devotion and a fascinating, sometimes terrifying assertion of divine power. The very first steps on this journey were laid not with grand pronouncements, but with the subtle shifts of power among disparate riverside communities. From those fragmented beginnings, the figure who would become the very embodiment of Egypt slowly began to take shape, the divine ruler, known to us as the Pharaoh. This wasn't just a powerful king or queen, this was a living god, a cosmic pivot around whom the entire universe, as the Egyptians understood it, revolved. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that your leader wasn't just a politician, but a direct link to the heavens responsible for the sun rising, the Nile flooding, and order prevailing over chaos. Their sacred role and power were absolute, divinely ordained, and utterly central to Egyptian existence. The pharaoh was considered the earthly incarnation of Horus, the sky god, and upon his death, he would become Osiris, god of the underworld and rebirth. This dual nature meant he wasn't merely a temporal leader, but a crucial intermediary between humanity and the pantheon of Egyptian deities. His primary duty, the very essence of his existence, was to maintain Ma'at, a concept encompassing truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. When the pharaoh performed rituals, built temples, or led armies, he wasn't just exercising power, he was actively upholding the divine order, ensuring the prosperity of Egypt and the continued favor of the gods. It's like having a CEO who's also responsible for making sure the planets stay in orbit. You probably wouldn't survive asking for a raise from someone with that kind of job description. One authoritative historical fact is that the pharaoh's divine kingship was a cornerstone of ancient Egyptian religion and governance, legitimizing his absolute authority over all aspects of Egyptian life. You'd see the pervasive symbolism everywhere, on temple walls, on monumental statues, in every depiction of the pharaoh. He was always portrayed with specific regalia: the double crown symbolizing unified Egypt, the false beard representing his divine status, the crook and flail symbolizing kingship and the sustenance of his people. These weren't mere costumes, they were sacred artifacts reinforcing his divine authority. Every act, from leading religious festivals to overseeing building projects, was imbued with spiritual significance. His health and well-being were considered directly linked to the health and prosperity of the entire nation. If the Nile failed to flood, it might be interpreted as a sign of the pharaoh's waning divine power or a breach in Ma'at. Here's a quirky fact: some pharaohs were so dedicated to maintaining their divine image that they would rarely appear in public without elaborate regalia and a retinue of priests and officials ensuring that their every appearance was a carefully orchestrated manifestation of divine power. It was like living in a perpetual superhero movie, but the superhero was also your Supreme Court justice and head of agriculture. Historians still debate whether the pharaoh's divine status was genuinely believed by the entire populace, or if it was primarily a sophisticated political ideology used to consolidate power and maintain social stability. Was it sincere faith or clever propaganda? So as you come to terms with the pharaoh's immense power and sacred role, you understand that Egyptian society was built upon a profound belief in their leader as a living deity. This conviction shaped everything from the grandest pyramid to the humblest prayer, creating a civilization utterly unique in its blend of earthly governance and divine reverence. It was a role that few could comprehend, let alone wield. From the conceptual height of the pharaoh's divine role, our narrative now descends to the very beginning of unified Egypt, bringing you face to face with the legendary figure of Narmer, credited with unifying the lands. Imagine a time when Upper and Lower Egypt were distinct, often warring entities, and then picture the decisive force that brought them together under a single crown, laying the foundation for millennia of pharaonic rule. He's the original unifier, the one who started it all, though his story is veiled in the mists of deep antiquity. While definitive historical proof remains elusive, archaeological evidence strongly suggests that Narmer, or possibly a king, very similar to him, was the pharaoh responsible for the critical act of uniting Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE, ushering in the early dynastic period. The most compelling piece of evidence is the Narmer palette, a ceremonial cosmetic palette depicting a king wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt on one side, smiting an enemy, and on the other, wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt. This powerful imagery is often interpreted as a symbolic representation of the unification. He literally put the two pieces of Egypt together, like the world's most impressive jigsaw puzzle. One authoritative historical fact is that the Narmer palette discovered in Hierakonpolis is considered one of the most significant archaeological finds for understanding the early history of Egyptian unification and the emergence of pharaonic iconography. You'd envision the strategic brilliance or brutal force, or perhaps both, that Narmer employed to achieve this monumental feat. Unifying two distinct kingdoms, each with its own cultural identity and local rulers, would have been no small task. It involved not just military conquest, but also clever political maneuvering and the establishment of a centralized administration capable of governing a much larger territory. This wasn't just about winning battles, it was about building a cohesive nation out of disparate parts. It's like trying to get all your distant cousins to agree on a single family reunion destination, except the stakes are entire kingdoms. Here's a quirky fact: some Egyptologists believe that Narmer might have been the same person as Menes, another legendary early king often credited in ancient Egyptian king lists with the unification. The identity of Menes is still debated, but the Narmer palette gives us a more concrete visual of this pivotal moment. Historians still debate whether the unification of Egypt was a single decisive event under one powerful ruler like Narmer, or if it was a more gradual process spanning several generations, with Narmer representing the culmination of these efforts. Was it a single conqueror or the final step in a long process? So as you contemplate the legendary figure of Narmer, you're looking at the very dawn of a civilization. His act of unifying the lands not only created the powerful nation we know as ancient Egypt, but also established the foundational concept of the pharaoh as the sole divine ruler, setting the stage for millennia of awe-inspiring history. His legacy is etched not just in stone, but in the very identity of a united Egypt. From the foundational work of the early dynastic period, you now step into what is arguably the most iconic era of ancient Egypt, the Old Kingdom, truly the age of pyramids. Imagine standing at the foot of colossal stone mountains built by human hands, piercing the desert sky, an awe-inspiring testament to unparalleled ambition, organizational power, and unwavering religious devotion. This was a period of monumental grandeur where the pharaoh's divine authority was literally carved into the landscape. The Old Kingdom, lasting from roughly 2686 BCE to 2081 BCE, dynasties 3 through 6, is renowned for its explosion of monumental architecture, particularly the pyramids. These weren't just tombs. They were complex funerary complexes designed to house the pharaoh's body and all his earthly possessions for eternity, ensuring his successful transition to the afterlife and his continued role as a divine protector of Egypt. The scale of these projects is mind-boggling, requiring incredible feats of engineering, immense labor forces, and a highly centralized administration capable of mobilizing vast resources. It's like building a cathedral the size of a mountain using only hand tools and doing it all with absolute precision. You probably wouldn't survive being on the receiving end of a stone block accidentally dropped from 400 feet up. One authoritative historical fact is that the Old Kingdom represents the pinnacle of ancient Egyptian pyramid construction, with the Giza complex being its most famous achievement. You'd witness the disciplined organization of tens of thousands of laborers, farmers working during the Nile's inundation, skilled craftsmen, quarrymen, and overseers all toiling under the pharaoh's command. They weren't slaves in the traditional sense, but rather conscripted workers fulfilling their civic duty to their divine king. The logistics involved in quarrying millions of tons of stone, transporting them across the desert, and then lifting them into place with astonishing accuracy speak volumes about the power of the pharaoh and the belief system that drove such endeavors. The sheer scale makes you wonder if our modern skyscrapers are just echoes of this ancient desire to touch the sky. Here's a quirky fact to ensure the structural integrity of the pyramids. The ancient Egyptians used a technique called true casing, where the outer layer of the pyramid was covered with highly polished white limestone blocks, fitted together so precisely you couldn't slip a knife blade between them. This gave the pyramids a dazzling, almost blinding sheen under the desert sun, before erosion and stone salvaging removed most of it. Historians still debate whether the construction of the pyramids was primarily a display of the pharaoh's absolute power and wealth, or if it also served as a massive public works project that unified the population and provided employment during the annual flood season. Was it tyranny or social cohesion? So, as you gaze upon the enduring wonders of the Old Kingdom, you're looking at the ultimate expression of pharaonic might and divine ambition. This was truly our age of pyramids, where the very landscape was reshaped to serve the eternal glory of Egypt's god-kings, leaving behind a legacy that continues to baffle and inspire us millennia later. From the awe-inspiring scale of the Old Kingdom pyramids, your focus now narrows to one of the key innovators of this monumental age, Djoser the Step Pyramid pioneer. Imagine a pharaoh who dared to dream beyond the traditional mud brick tomb, inspiring a revolution in stone architecture that would forever change the landscape of Egypt. He wasn't just a builder, he was a visionary whose monument literally marked a step change in Egyptian history. Djoser was a pharaoh of the Third Dynasty reigning around 2670 BCE. His lasting legacy is the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, the world's first large-scale stone building and the precursor to the smooth-sided pyramids that would follow. Before Djoser, pharaohs were buried under large rectangular mud brick mastabas. Djoser's vizier and architect, the legendary Imhotep, often considered the world's first architect, and physician conceived the revolutionary idea of stacking progressively smaller mastabas on top of each other, creating a colossal stepped structure that ascended towards the heavens. This wasn't just an architectural feat. It was a profound symbolic statement, a stairway for the pharaoh's soul to reach the celestial realm. One authoritative historical fact is that the Step Pyramid complex at Saqqara, designed by Imhotep for Pharaoh Djoser, is recognized as the earliest monumental stone building in history. You'd envision the innovative construction methods, massive quantities of quarried stone, precisely cut and moved, replacing the more fragile mud brick. The sheer audacity of the project at a time when such stone construction was unprecedented speaks volumes about Djoser's power and Imhotep's genius. The complex itself was enormous, enclosed by a 34-foot-high limestone wall, mimicking the earlier mud brick palace enclosures, but built entirely in stone. It included temples, courtyards, and subterranean passages, all designed to facilitate Djoser's eternal journey and to reflect his divine status. It's a bit like someone inventing the skyscraper when everyone else is still living in mud huts. You probably wouldn't survive being in charge of the team that had to figure out how to lift those first massive stones without modern cranes. Here's a quirky fact. Imhotep Djoser's brilliant architect was later deified by the Egyptians themselves, worshipped as a god of medicine and healing. He's one of the very few non-royals to achieve such a status, a testament to the profound impact of his architectural and intellectual contributions. Historians still debate whether Imhotep's design for the Step Pyramid was a sudden stroke of genius or if it evolved from earlier, perhaps less successful experiments in stacking mastabas, representing the culmination of an ongoing architectural development. Was it a lightning bolt of inspiration or a gradual refinement? So, as you marvel at the enduring presence of Djoser's Step Pyramid, you're looking at a pivotal moment in ancient Egyptian history. It was a monument that not only redefined pharaonic burial, but also kickstarted an era of unprecedented monumental construction, solidifying Egypt's architectural ambitions and confirming Djoser as the true step pyramid pioneer. Its very form was a climb towards eternity. From the revolutionary design of Djoser's step pyramid, your gaze now turns to the ultimate expression of Old Kingdom ambition Khufu, the pharaoh eternally linked to the Great Pyramid's builder. Imagine standing before the single most massive stone structure ever built by human hands, its sheer scale defying belief, a testament to an empire's power and a pharaoh's unwavering pursuit of immortality. This wasn't just a tomb. It was a cosmic mountain meticulously engineered to protect a king for eternity. Khufu, known as Cheops to the Greeks, was a pharaoh of the 4th dynasty ruling around 2580 BCE. His monumental achievement, the Great Pyramid of Giza, was the largest of the 3 pyramids at Giza and remained the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. Composed of an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing on average 2.5 tons, some far heavier, its construction required an unprecedented mobilization of resources and labor, all dedicated to the eternal resting place of one man. It's like building a mountain out of Lego bricks, but each brick weighs as much as a rhinoceros. You probably wouldn't survive being part of the team trying to maneuver one of those massive granite blocks up a ramp without crushing yourself. One authoritative historical fact is that the Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu, stood approximately 146.6 meters, 481 feet tall when completed, and was clad in polished white limestone, giving it a dazzling appearance. You'd envision the vast army of workers estimated at tens of thousands toiling for decades. They quarried limestone from local sites and granite from Aswan hundreds of miles away, transporting the colossal stones across the Nile and dragging them up enormous ramps. The precision of the engineering is still astounding. The pyramid's base is almost perfectly level, and its sides are aligned with incredible accuracy to the cardinal points. This monumental effort wasn't driven by forced slave labor in the traditional sense, but by a highly organized system of skilled craftsmen and seasonal conscripts, all bound by their devotion to their divine pharaoh. It makes you wonder if our modern construction projects, for all their machinery, possess the same single-minded devotion. Here's a quirky fact: despite its immense size and historical significance, surprisingly few personal artifacts or detailed records of Khufu himself have been found inside the Great Pyramid, leading some to speculate about the nature of his burial or later tomb robberies. The most significant finding is a small, exquisitely carved ivory figurine thought to be the only confirmed depiction of Khufu. Historians still debate the exact methods used to construct the Great Pyramid, particularly how the massive blocks were lifted to such incredible heights, with theories ranging from external ramps to internal spiraling ramps. Was it ingenious simplicity or complex innovation? So as you gaze upon the enduring mystery and monumental scale of Khufu's Great Pyramid, you're witnessing the peak of Old Kingdom ambition. It stands as a silent yet powerful testament to the unwavering belief in the pharaoh's divine status and his right to an eternal dwelling, solidifying Khufu's legacy as the Great Pyramid's builder. It truly was a marvel of the ancient world, defying gravity and time. From the monumental heights of the Old Kingdom, your journey now takes an unsettling turn as you confront the first intermediate period, an era where chaos reigns and the powerful centralized rule of the pharaoh collapses into fragmentation and civil unrest. Imagine the vast, stable empire you've just witnessed suddenly fracturing, local governors asserting their independence, and the grand pyramid building ceasing as authority dissolves. It was a period of profound instability, a jarring contrast to the ordered grandeur that preceded it. The First Intermediate Period, roughly from 2181 BCE to 2055 BCE, dynasties 7 through 10, though the exact timeline and number of dynasties are debated, followed the long and prosperous Old Kingdom. It was characterized by a weakening of the central pharaonic government, possibly due to a combination of factors unusually low: Nile floods leading to food shortages, increasing power of regional governors, nomarchs, who became hereditary rulers of their provinces, and a general decline in royal authority. Pharaohs still technically ruled, but their power rarely extended beyond their capital, often Memphis. This decentralization led to internal conflicts, economic hardship, and a breakdown of the unified artistic and religious conventions. You probably wouldn't survive trying to collect taxes in this period, as local strongmen would likely tell you where to go. One authoritative historical fact is that the First Intermediate Period is marked by a severe decentralization of power, with nomarchs effectively ruling their nomes, provinces independently challenging the traditional absolute authority of the pharaoh. You'd witness the practical consequences of this chaos. Monumental building projects largely ceased as the resources and centralized organization required for such endeavors were no longer available. Tombs became smaller and less elaborate, reflecting a shift in religious beliefs, where access to the afterlife became more democratized, no longer solely dependent on the pharaoh's divine intercession. Art, while still present, became more regional in style, losing the uniform grandeur of the Old Kingdom. It's a bit like a highly organized corporation suddenly breaking down into dozens of squabbling independent franchises, each doing their own thing. The once mighty unified kingdom was now a patchwork of competing local powers struggling for control and resources. Here's a quirky fact. Despite the political fragmentation, this period saw the emergence of significant literary works, often pessimistic in tone, reflecting the anxieties of the time. These wisdom texts and laments about the breakdown of order provide invaluable insights into the social and psychological impact of the era's instability. Historians still debate whether the First Intermediate Period was a true dark age of chaos and suffering, or if it also allowed for a flourishing of local cultures and artistic expressions unconstrained by strict central control. Was it a time of widespread distress, or a period of regional dynamism? So, as you observe the First Intermediate Period, you understand that even the most enduring empires can face periods of profound instability. This was an era where chaos reigned, a stark reminder that the pharaoh's divine power, while immense, was ultimately reliant on the earthly structures of governance and prosperity, which for a time had crumbled. It was a difficult, yet fascinating pause in Egypt's long journey. Emerging from the turmoil of the First Intermediate Period, you now witness a remarkable resurgence as Egypt enters the Middle Kingdom, an era often characterized as a period of rebirth and literature. Imagine a fragmented land slowly reuniting its pharaohs, reasserting authority, and a flourishing of art, intellect, and profound written works that offer deep insights into the Egyptian soul. It was a time when order was restored, and with it a renewed sense of purpose and cultural sophistication. The Middle Kingdom, stretching from approximately 2055 BCE to 1650 BCE, dynasties 11 and 12, saw the reunification of Egypt under powerful pharaohs who re-established a strong central government largely from the southern city of Thebes. This was a conscious effort to restore the glory of the Old Kingdom, but with a nuanced difference. While the Old Kingdom pharaohs were distant divine figures, Middle Kingdom pharaohs often presented themselves as benevolent shepherds of their people, more accessible and concerned with the welfare of their subjects. This shift in ideology reflects the lessons learned from the previous period of chaos. One authoritative historical fact is that Mentuhotep II, a pharaoh from the 11th dynasty, is widely credited with reunifying Egypt after the First Intermediate Period, effectively ushering in the Middle Kingdom. You'd observe a renewed focus on large-scale public works, though not on the colossal scale of the Old Kingdom pyramids. Instead, pharaohs invested in irrigation projects, canals, and fortresses, demonstrating a more practical approach to governance and a concern for national infrastructure. The period is also renowned for its exquisite craftsmanship in jewelry sculpture and tomb decoration, often characterized by a sophisticated realism and sensitivity not seen before. It's like a society deciding, okay, we've had our existential crisis now. Let's get back to building great things, but maybe with a slightly more empathetic touch. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Middle Kingdom, however, is its flourishing of literature. This era produced some of ancient Egypt's finest literary masterpieces, including The Story of Sinuhe, an epic tale of an Egyptian courtier's adventures abroad, The Eloquent Peasant, a story highlighting justice for the common man, and numerous wisdom texts offering moral and philosophical guidance. These works provide an incredibly rich window into the Egyptian worldview, their values, and their daily lives, showing a deeper psychological complexity than earlier periods. It's a bit like discovering the foundational novels and philosophical treatises of an entire civilization, revealing their inner thoughts and anxieties. You'd probably survive a scholarly debate in this period, but you'd definitely need to brush up on your hieroglyphic literary criticism. Here's a quirky fact. Some Middle Kingdom literary works contain surprisingly cynical or pessimistic passages about the nature of humanity and the transience of life, perhaps reflecting the collective trauma of the preceding chaotic period. This contrasts sharply with the earlier, more overtly optimistic outlook of the Old Kingdom. Historians still debate whether the literary flourishing of the Middle Kingdom was a deliberate cultural policy by the pharaohs to promote national identity and wisdom, or if it was a spontaneous outburst of artistic expression, fueled by renewed stability and a reflective mood. Was it state-sponsored art or organic creativity? So as you witness the vibrant tapestry of the Middle Kingdom, you're observing a period of profound cultural and political rebirth. The pharaohs of this era not only restored order, but fostered an intellectual and artistic awakening, leaving behind a legacy of both impressive monuments and timeless literature, a testament to Egypt's resilience and enduring spirit. From the flourishing literature and renewed stability of the Middle Kingdom, your attention now turns to one of its most formidable rulers, Sesostris III, I.e., warrior kings, might personified. Imagine a pharaoh who wasn't just a builder or a benevolent shepherd, but a relentless military strategist personally leading his armies into battle to expand Egypt's borders and secure its economic interests. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, or rather sandy. Sesostris III, who reigned from approximately 1878 to 1841 BCE, was a pharaoh of the 12th dynasty, a period often considered the zenith of Middle Kingdom power. He is renowned for his aggressive military campaigns, particularly into Nubia, modern-day Sudan to the south, and even incursions into the Levant to the northeast. His motivation was clear: to control vital trade routes and secure access to valuable resources like gold, which was abundant in Nubia. To achieve this, he organized a highly effective standing army and personally led his troops, a departure from some earlier pharaohs who might have delegated military leadership. You'd probably think twice about questioning his battle plans given his reputation. One authoritative historical fact is that Sesostris III undertook at least 4 major campaigns into Nubia, establishing a series of formidable mud brick fortresses along the Nile to secure Egyptian control and trade. You'd witness the practical measures he took to consolidate his power and control. He reorganized the administrative system, diminishing the power of the nomarchs, regional governors who had become so powerful during the first intermediate period. This centralization of authority ensured that loyalty and resources flowed directly to the pharaoh, making his military ambitions possible. He also engaged in significant building projects, though often more utilitarian than the grand tombs of the Old Kingdom, focusing on temples and irrigation works. It's a bit like a CEO who not only streamlines the company, but also personally heads up the toughest acquisition deals. His reign marked a peak of pharaonic control both domestically and internationally. Here's a quirky fact: Sesostris III was often depicted with a distinctly stern and brooding expression in his statues, with prominent brow ridges and large ears, possibly a deliberate artistic choice to emphasize his strength, determination, and attentiveness to his people. He wasn't going for friendly. Historians still debate whether Sesostris III's military expansionism was primarily a defensive strategy to protect Egypt's borders and resources, or if it was a more aggressive imperialistic drive to assert Egyptian dominance and extract wealth from neighboring lands. Was he a protector or a conqueror? So as you encounter the formidable figure of Sesostris III, you're witnessing the full might of a hewn warrior king. His reign was a testament to the pharaoh's evolving role, demonstrating that true power lay not just in divine right and monumental building, but also in the strategic command of armies and the relentless pursuit of national interests, securing Egypt's influence through sheer force and determination. From the expansionist might of Sesostris III, your journey through ancient Egypt now leads you to a turbulent and often perplexing period. The Second Intermediate Period, marked by the mysterious Hyksos influx. Imagine a mighty empire seemingly invincible suddenly falling under the sway of foreign rulers, bringing both disruption and surprising innovation. It was a time of vulnerability, but also of unexpected cultural exchange. The Second Intermediate Period, roughly from 1650 BCE to 1550 BCE dynasties, 13 through 17, was a chaotic era following the decline of the Middle Kingdom. The central government once again weakened, perhaps due to internal strife, economic pressures, or a succession of short-lived pharaohs. This instability created a power vacuum which was swiftly filled by foreign groups. The most prominent of these were the Hyksos, a Greek term meaning rulers of foreign lands, a group of West Asian origin who migrated into the Nile Delta. They eventually gained control over Lower Egypt, establishing their own dynasty, the 15th dynasty, with their capital at Avaris. You probably wouldn't survive trying to explain the chain of command to your local Hyksos governor. One authoritative historical fact is that the Hyksos ruled a significant portion of Lower Egypt for over a century, establishing a period of foreign dominion that profoundly impacted Egyptian society and military technology. You'd witness a fascinating, if sometimes uneasy, blend of cultures. The Hyksos, despite being foreign rulers, adopted many aspects of Egyptian culture, including pharaonic titles, hieroglyphic writing, and religious practices. However, they also introduced new technologies and military tactics that would forever change Egypt. These innovations included the composite bow, a more powerful and accurate weapon than the simple bows previously used by Egyptians, improved bronze metallurgy for stronger weapons and tools, and most significantly, the horse and chariot. The chariot, a fast maneuverable war platform, revolutionized ancient warfare and gave the Hyksos a distinct military advantage. It's a bit like a highly advanced foreign military suddenly appearing with tanks and fighter jets when you've only got swords and spears. Here's a quirky fact. Despite their foreign origin, some Hyksos rulers even commissioned Egyptian-style monuments and scarab seals, attempting to legitimize their rule by presenting themselves within the established pharaonic tradition. This blend of appropriation and introduction highlights the complex cultural dynamics of the period. Historians still debate whether the Hyksos were a conquering invasion force, as later Egyptian accounts depicted them, or if they were more of a gradual migration and assimilation of foreign peoples who eventually rose to power due to the weakened central authority. Was it invasion or gradual infiltration? So, as you observe the Second Intermediate Period, you understand that while it was a challenging time of fragmentation and foreign rule, it was also a crucible for change. The Hyksos influx brought with it crucial military and technological innovations that paradoxically would later be adopted by the Egyptians themselves, ultimately enabling them to expel the Hyksos and establish their own powerful empire, setting the stage for the glorious new kingdom. Emerging from the crucible of the Second Intermediate Period, Egypt explodes onto the global stage in the New Kingdom. Truly, the Empire's zenith. Imagine a unified, revitalized nation wielding the very military innovations learned from the Hyksos to forge a vast, sprawling empire extending its reach from Nubia in the south to the Euphrates River in the north. This was the age of monumental temples, diplomatic intrigue, and pharaohs, who were not just gods at home, but powerful rulers on the international stage. The New Kingdom, lasting from approximately 1550 BCE to 1070 BCE dynasties, 18 through 20 represents ancient Egypt's peak of power, wealth, and territorial expansion. After expelling the Hyksos, the pharaohs of this era, particularly from Thebes, adopted and perfected the military technologies that had once been used against them, most notably the horse and chariot. This gave them an unprecedented advantage in warfare, allowing them to project power far beyond their traditional borders. Unlike the Old Kingdom's focus on internal monument building, the New Kingdom was outward-looking, engaging in aggressive military campaigns and establishing vast trade networks. You'd probably consider getting a chariot if you wanted to make a statement in this period. It was the ultimate power vehicle. One authoritative historical fact is that the New Kingdom is characterized by Egypt's transformation into an imperial power controlling territories and extracting tribute from neighboring states, leading to immense national wealth. You'd witness the immense wealth flowing into Egypt from its conquered territories and trade partnerships. This affluence fueled an unprecedented era of temple construction, particularly in Upper Egypt. Grand temples like Karnak and Luxor, with their towering pylons, vast courtyards, and hypostyle halls, filled with colossal columns, were built or expanded dedicated to the state gods and celebrating the pharaoh's piety and military victories. These weren't just places of worship. They were immense propaganda machines reinforcing the pharaoh's divine legitimacy and imperial might. It's a bit like building a series of supersized cathedrals, each one grander than the last, all to show off how amazing your boss is. The scale and artistry were breathtaking, designed to inspire awe and submission. Here's a quirky fact. Some New Kingdom pharaohs, in their eagerness to display their wealth and power, even imported exotic animals like giraffes and monkeys from distant lands, keeping them in royal menageries. Imagine the logistics of transporting a giraffe across the ancient world. Historians still debate whether the aggressive expansionism of the New Kingdom pharaohs was primarily driven by strategic military necessity to create buffer zones and secure resources, or if it was also fueled by an inherent desire for empire and a pursuit of prestige on the international stage. Was it defensive or purely imperialistic ambition? So as you stand amidst the monumental remnants of the New Kingdom, you're experiencing the very zenith of Egypt's empire. This was a time when pharaohs ruled a vast dominion, commanded powerful armies, and built temples that literally scraped the sky, leaving behind a legacy of power, wealth, and artistic grandeur that continues to define ancient Egypt in the popular imagination. From the sheer imperial might of the new kingdom, your gaze is now drawn to one of its most remarkable and unconventional figures, Hatshepsut. Halo, female pharaoh's reign, that defied every expectation and tradition. Imagine a world where kingship was inextricably linked to male divine authority, and then picture a woman boldly stepping into that role not as a regent, but as a full-fledged ruler complete with false beard and male titles. She truly shattered the bronze ceiling of ancient Egypt. Hatshepsut, who reigned from approximately 1479 to 1458 BCE 18th dynasty, was initially regent for her young stepson Thutmose III. However, within a few years, she proclaimed herself pharaoh, taking on all the traditional regalia and titles associated with male kingship. This was unprecedented. While queens had held significant power, no woman before her had officially reigned as pharaoh of a unified Egypt. To legitimize her rule, she propagated stories of her divine birth, claiming the god Amun-Ra himself was her true father, and had herself depicted with a masculine physique, wearing the traditional pharaonic false beard. One authoritative historical fact is that Hatshepsut's reign was characterized by an emphasis on internal development and trade, particularly her famous expedition to the land of Punt, rather than extensive military campaigns. You'd witness her monumental building projects rivaling those of her male predecessors. Her most famous achievement is the magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a stunning terraced structure carved into the cliffs, which was a departure from the traditional pyramid tomb. The temple's reliefs vividly depict her divine birth, her coronation, and the successful expedition to Punt, showcasing her accomplishments and reinforcing her legitimacy. She wasn't just ruling, she was consciously shaping her image for posterity, asserting her right to the throne through monumental propaganda. It's a bit like a modern leader commissioning huge billboards everywhere, but the billboards are carved into mountainsides and last for millennia. You probably wouldn't survive contradicting her divine birth story. That was a one-way ticket to a very uncomfortable afterlife. Here's a quirky fact: after Hatshepsut's death, much of her monumental legacy, including her statues and inscriptions, was systematically defaced or erased by her stepson Thutmose III, possibly to erase her memory and restore the traditional male line of succession. This damnatio memoriae makes her enduring prominence in history all the more remarkable. Historians still debate whether Thutmose III's erasure of Hatshepsut was an act of personal vengeance or a politically motivated attempt to re-establish the traditional order and prevent future challenges to male pharaonic rule. Was it petty spite or statecraft? So as you delve into the extraordinary reign of Hatshepsut, you're observing a truly unique chapter in Egyptian history. Her bold assertion of power as a female pharaoh challenged millennia of tradition, leaving behind a legacy of monumental construction and a fascinating story of ambition, legitimacy, and the enduring power of a woman who dared to rule as king. Her very existence was a paradox carved in stone. From the remarkable yet ultimately challenged reign of Hatshepsut, your journey now follows the trajectory of her powerful stepson, Thutmose III, a pharaoh whose legacy is defined by his formidable military prowess and strategic genius, making him the Qua, warrior, pharaoh's legacy. Imagine a king who personally led 17 military campaigns, forging an empire that stretched further than any Egyptian ruler before him, solidifying Egypt's position as the dominant superpower of the ancient Near East. He truly earned his moniker as the Napoleon of Egypt. Thutmose III reigned c. of 1479–1425 BCE, though his effective sole rule began after Hatshepsut's death, c. 1458 BCE of the 18th dynasty is widely regarded as one of ancient Egypt's greatest warrior pharaohs. He inherited a prosperous but internally focused Egypt from Hatshepsut and quickly transformed it into an aggressive imperial power. His campaigns, meticulously recorded on the walls of the Karnak temple, extended Egypt's control deep into Nubia and across the Levant, bringing unprecedented wealth and tribute back to Egypt. His strategic brilliance was legendary, often involving daring maneuvers and swift, decisive actions. One authoritative historical fact is that Thutmose III developed sophisticated siege tactics and logistical support for his armies, enabling him to conduct extended campaigns far from Egypt, which was a significant military innovation for the time. You'd envision him personally leading his chariot forces, coordinating infantry, and laying siege to fortified cities. The spoils of his conquests — gold, silver, valuable timber, exotic animals, and captive princes — flowed into Egypt, enriching the temples and the royal treasury. This wealth allowed for grand construction projects, including additions to the Karnak temple and the creation of his own impressive mortuary temple. His military successes secured Egypt's borders and created a vast buffer zone, ensuring stability and prosperity for generations. It's a bit like having a general who never loses a battle and then uses all the prize money to build enormous monuments to himself. You probably wouldn't survive being on the opposing army's side. Here's a quirky fact. Thutmose III was also a keen botanist. After his successful campaigns in the Levant, he brought back numerous exotic plants and trees, which were then cultivated in temple gardens and depicted in detailed reliefs, demonstrating a curiosity that extended beyond military conquest. Historians still debate whether Thutmose III's aggressive military expansion was a direct continuation of earlier pharaonic policies to secure trade routes and resources, or if it was a more ambitious and deliberate shift towards genuine imperialism and the creation of a vast tribute-collecting empire. Was he a protector or an empire builder for empire's sake? So as you trace the formidable campaigns of Thutmose III, you're witnessing the full realization of Egypt's imperial ambitions. His unwavering military might and strategic genius forged a vast empire, leaving behind a warrior pharaoh's legacy that marked the high point of Egypt's power and influence in the ancient world, cementing his place as one of history's most successful military commanders. From the military triumphs of Thutmose III, your journey through pharaonic Egypt now veers sharply into one of its most fascinating and controversial periods, bringing you face to face with Akhenaten, the heretic king's revolution. Imagine a pharaoh who seemingly out of nowhere rejected millennia of established polytheistic religion, closed temples, banished traditional gods, and declared a single supreme deity, shaking the very foundations of Egyptian society. He was truly a cosmic disruptor. Akhenaten, originally named Amenhotep IV, reigned from approximately 1353 to 1336 BCE, 18th dynasty. Early in his reign, he began to promote the worship of Aten, the disk of the sun, as the sole supreme god, effectively a form of monotheism or henotheism, worshipping one god above all others, while not necessarily denying the existence of others. This was a radical departure from the complex pantheon of gods Egyptians had worshipped for centuries, especially the powerful state god Amun-Ra. Akhenaten not only elevated Aten but actively suppressed the worship of other deities, defacing their images and closing their temples. He even moved the capital from Thebes to a new purpose-built city called Akhetaten Modern Amarna, dedicated entirely to Aten. You probably wouldn't survive being a priest of Amun during his reign. That was a one-way ticket to unemployment, or worse. One authoritative historical fact is that Akhenaten's religious reforms represented a profound, albeit short-lived break from traditional Egyptian religion, severely undermining the powerful priesthood of Amun. you'd witness the dramatic shifts in art that accompanied his religious revolution. The traditional, idealized, and static depictions of pharaohs were replaced with a more naturalistic, even exaggerated style. Akhenaten, his queen Nefertiti, and their children were often portrayed with elongated heads, slender limbs, and prominent bellies, emphasizing a more human familial aspect, though perhaps reflecting artistic license more than true physical appearance. This artistic shift, like the religious one, was a deliberate break from convention, reflecting Akhenaten's desire for a new order. It's a bit like a modern artist suddenly deciding all portraits must be drawn as cartoons, but with profound religious implications. The speed and intensity of his reforms must have been disorienting for many Egyptians who had grown up revering a multitude of gods. Here's a quirky fact. Despite his radical religious agenda, Akhenaten had a surprisingly strong interest in nature. Many of the reliefs in Amarna depict him and his family interacting in natural settings, appreciating the Aten's warmth through birds, flowers, and animals, a marked contrast to the more formal and ritualistic scenes of earlier reigns. Historians still debate whether Akhenaten's religious revolution was a genuine spiritual epiphany and an attempt to simplify a complex polytheistic system, or if it was primarily a politically motivated move to curb the immense power and wealth of the Amun priesthood, which had become a rival to the pharaoh himself. Was it divine inspiration or strategic power play? So as you explore the revolutionary reign of Akhenaten, you're observing a truly unique and tumultuous period. His bold attempt to reshape the religious landscape of Egypt marked him as the heretic king, leaving behind a legacy of profound religious and artistic change that, while ultimately reversed, continues to intrigue and puzzle scholars millennia later. His vision was radical, his impact undeniable. From the radical, sun-drenched reign of Akhenaten, your journey through ancient Egypt now transitions to his enigmatic successor, Tutankhamun, forever known as the Golden Boy's brief rule. Imagine a young pharaoh thrust onto the throne at a tender age, tasked with undoing his father's controversial religious revolution and restoring the ancient order, a task that would define his short life and paradoxically secure his eternal fame. He was less a revolutionary and more a restorer, a quiet pivot point in a tumultuous era. Tutankhamun born. Tutankhaten reigned from approximately 1332 to 1323 BCE, 18th dynasty. He ascended to the throne as a child, likely around the age of 9, and his reign, which lasted only about 9 years, was primarily guided by powerful regents including Ai and Horemheb. His most significant act was reversing Akhenaten's Atenist reforms, restoring the traditional polytheistic religion, reopening the temples of Amun and other gods, and reinstating their powerful priesthoods. He changed his name from Tutankhaten, living image of Aten, to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun, to symbolize this return to orthodoxy. One authoritative historical fact is that the restoration of the traditional Amun cult and the abandonment of Akhenaten's city of Amarna were the most crucial policy decisions of Tutankhamun's reign, marking a return to religious and political stability. You'd witness the dismantling of Akhenaten's legacy. The temples of Aten were neglected. The city of Amarna was abandoned, and the names of the heretic king and his chief queen Nefertiti were systematically erased from monuments. Tutankhamun's reign was dedicated to healing the religious and political wounds inflicted by his father, a monumental task for such a young ruler. It's a bit like a child inheriting a massive, sprawling business that their eccentric parent had completely rebranded and then being told to quietly change everything back to the way it was. You probably wouldn't survive trying to sneak in a small Atenist prayer during this period. The priests of Amun were not forgiving. Here's a quirky fact: despite his relatively short and historically unremarkable reign in terms of grand achievements or military conquests, Tutankhamun became globally famous in the 20th century due to the almost intact discovery of his tomb by Howard Carter in 1922. This unparalleled find, bursting with unimaginable treasures, provided an unprecedented glimpse into the wealth and funerary practices of ancient Egyptian royalty, securing his place as Egypt's golden boy. Historians still debate the exact cause of Tutankhamun's death at such a young age, with theories ranging from a chariot accident to a severe bone infection, leaving his demise a subject of ongoing scientific and archaeological investigation. Was it an accident or assassination? So, as you consider the brief yet pivotal reign of Tutankhamun, you're observing a young pharaoh who, by restoring tradition, ironically became one of the most famous rulers of ancient Egypt. His Golden Boy's brief rule, the Hako, was a vital turning point, leading Egypt away from radical change and back to its ancient revered ways, a restoration that would pave the way for an even grander era. From the brief but pivotal restoration of Tutankhamun, your journey through ancient Egypt now plunges into the extraordinary reign of Ramesses II, rightfully known as the Great Builder. Imagine a pharaoh whose ambition was so boundless and whose reign so long that he left an indelible mark on almost every major temple and monument across Egypt, carving his name into stone with a relentless, awe-inspiring vigor. He was a master of self-promotion, a pharaonic brand builder like no other. Ramesses II, a pharaoh of the 19th dynasty, reigned for an astonishing 66 years, from approximately 1279 to 1213 BCE. This incredibly long period allowed him ample time to undertake an unprecedented program of monumental construction and restoration throughout Egypt and Nubia. From the colossal statues at Abu Simbel carved directly into the rock face, to the massive additions at the temples of Karnak and Luxor, to the building of his new capital city, Pi-Ramesses, his reign was a continuous symphony of stone and ambition. He didn't just build, he built bigger, better, and with more images of himself than anyone before him. One authoritative historical fact is that Ramesses II is credited with more surviving monuments and statues than any other pharaoh, a testament to the sheer scale of his building program. You'd witness the sheer audacity of his vision. He wasn't content with merely building new structures. He often usurped earlier monuments, adding his own cartouches and inscriptions over those of previous pharaohs, effectively claiming their achievements as his own. His temples and statues were designed to be overwhelming, conveying his immense power and divine connection to the gods. The scale of the workforce required for these projects rivaled that of the Old Kingdom pyramid builders, though with different techniques. It's a bit like a modern developer buying up all the historic buildings in a city, putting their name on them, and then adding a gigantic statue of themselves in front of every single one. You probably wouldn't survive trying to chip his name off a temple wall. He had a severe intolerance for such disrespect. Here's a quirky fact. Ramesses II had an astonishing number of children, estimated to be over 100 sons and daughters from various wives and concubines. He outlived many of them, creating a complex web of succession planning during his exceptionally long reign. Historians still debate whether Ramesses II's immense building program was solely a demonstration of his personal ego and desire for lasting fame, or if it also served as a strategic political tool to unify a vast empire, provide employment, and reinforce the state religion through visible piety. Was it self-aggrandizement or statecraft? So as you gaze upon the countless monuments bearing his name, you understand why Ramesses II earned his title as the Great Builder. His reign was an unparalleled era of monumental construction, transforming the landscape of Egypt with a scale and ambition that truly solidified his image as a powerful divine ruler, leaving behind an enduring testament to his colossal legacy. From the monumental building projects that defined his reign, your journey with Rameses II now takes a turn onto the battlefield, leading you to the epic confrontation known as the Battle of Kadesh, a legendary clash of empires. Imagine two of the most powerful civilizations of the ancient world, Egypt and the Hittite Empire, deploying thousands of chariots and infantry in a colossal struggle for dominance, a battle that would be immortalized, perhaps exaggeratedly, on countless temple walls. This wasn't just a skirmish, it was an ancient superpower showdown. The Battle of Kadesh, fought around 1274 BCE, was the climactic confrontation between the forces of Rameses II of Egypt and Mu'attali II of the Hittite Empire, vying for control over the Levant, modern-day Syria and Lebanon, a crucial strategic and trade region. Rameses II personally led his army, famously marching 4 divisions north. The battle itself was a complex multi-stage engagement, initially a massive chariot battle, followed by infantry engagements. Both sides claimed victory, but modern historians largely view it as a strategic stalemate, with neither side achieving decisive dominance, leading to the world's first known peace treaty. One authoritative historical fact is that the Battle of Kadesh is the earliest battle in history for which details of military tactics and formations are reasonably well known, thanks to extensive Egyptian and Hittite records. You'd envision the chaos and thunder of thousands of chariots, each carrying an archer and a driver, clashing on the plains outside the city of Kadesh. The dust would have been immense, the cries of soldiers deafening. Rameses II himself at one point found himself nearly surrounded and isolated, dramatically fighting his way out, a moment he extensively publicized in later inscriptions. This wasn't a game, it was a brutal, bloody conflict with the fate of vast empires hanging in the balance. It's a bit like a massive historical reenactment, but with actual spears and a much higher casualty rate. You probably wouldn't survive being a foot soldier caught between 2 chariot charges. Here's a quirky fact. Rameses II commissioned multiple highly detailed accounts of the Battle of Kadesh to be carved into the walls of his major temples like Luxor, Karnak, and the Ramesseum. These inscriptions, while visually stunning, are largely propaganda, heavily emphasizing his personal bravery and a decisive Egyptian victory, which contradicts Hittite records and modern historical analysis. Historians still debate the true victor of the Battle of Kadesh. While both sides claim success, the signing of a later peace treaty suggests a more balanced outcome, prompting ongoing discussions about ancient propaganda and historical revisionism. Was it a glorious victory or a cleverly spun tale? So as you reflect on the epic Battle of Kadesh, you understand that Rameses II was not only a great builder, but also a formidable military leader. This clash of empires solidified his image as a powerful warrior pharaoh, even if the outcome was more nuanced than his monumental inscription suggested, marking a pivotal moment in the power dynamics of the ancient Near East. From the epic scale of Kadesh, your journey through ancient Egypt now enters a more somber phase as you witness the decline and fall of an empire, observing the gradual weakening of pharaonic power. Imagine a once mighty nation, its colossal monuments still standing, yet its political and economic strength slowly eroding, facing internal strife and external pressures that chip away at its millennia-old dominance. This wasn't a sudden collapse, but a drawn-out twilight, a slow unraveling of a golden age. Following the glorious heights of the New Kingdom, particularly after the death of Rameses II, Egypt entered a period of progressive decline, often referred to as the Late Period, spanning from roughly 1070 BCE to 332 BCE dynasties, 21 through 31, though heavily interspersed with foreign rule. The pharaohs who followed, many named Rameses, sometimes dozens in a row, often lacked the charisma, military acumen, or centralized control of their predecessors. The royal authority became fragmented with powerful high priests of Amun in Thebes, sometimes wielding as much if not more power than the pharaoh in the north. Economic prosperity waned, trade routes became less secure, and internal divisions grew. You'd probably find it hard to tell who was really in charge during this era, as local strongmen and powerful religious figures vied for influence. One authoritative historical fact is that the decentralization of power and the rise of powerful local dynasties, particularly in Upper Egypt, were significant factors in the weakening of the central pharaonic government during the late period. You'd witness the slow erosion of Egypt's imperial holdings. Its control over Nubia dwindled and its influence in the Levant became negligible as new regional powers like the Assyrians and Babylonians rose to prominence. While pharaohs continued to build and restore temples, the scale and ambition rarely matched the new kingdom. The artistic style sometimes became derivative or retrospective, attempting to hark back to earlier glories rather than innovating. It's a bit like watching a grand old oak tree slowly wither, still impressive, but losing its vitality branch by branch. The once unquestioned divine authority of the pharaoh began to be challenged, or at least diluted, by the rising power of the priesthoods and the increasing incursions of foreign powers. Here's a quirky fact during the Third Intermediate Period. Part of this decline, some pharaohs were buried not in grand rock-cut tombs, but in silver coffins, as silver was even rarer and more valuable than gold in Egypt at that time, highlighting a shift in material wealth, and perhaps a desperate attempt at displaying status. Historians still debate the primary cause of Egypt's long decline after the New Kingdom. Was it internal weaknesses like political fragmentation and economic mismanagement, or external pressures from rising powers and environmental changes like fluctuating Nile floods? Was it a self-inflicted wound, or an inevitable consequence of shifting global power dynamics? So as you observe the gradual weakening of pharaonic power, you're witnessing the slow, inevitable decline and fall of a once unrivaled empire. It's a poignant reminder that even the most enduring civilizations are subject to the relentless currents of history, their power slowly ebbing as new forces rise to dominate the ancient world. The sun was slowly setting on the age of the true pharaohs. Following the long drawn-out twilight of pharaonic power, your journey through ancient Egypt now inevitably leads to a period of direct, foreign rule. As you witness the proud land fall under the successive yokes of Persian and Greek empires, imagine a civilization that had considered itself the center of the universe, now governed by distant monarchs whose gods and customs were utterly alien, fundamentally reshaping its political and cultural landscape. This was a jarring shift, a profound loss of indigenous sovereignty. The period of foreign rule began definitively with the Persian conquest. In 525 BCE, when the Achaemenid Persian Empire under Cambyses II defeated the last native Egyptian pharaoh Psamtik III at the Battle of Pelusium, Egypt became a satrapy province of the vast Persian Empire ruled by Persian governors. While the Persians sometimes adopted pharaonic titles to legitimize their rule, they were fundamentally foreign overlords, primarily interested in Egypt's wealth and resources. This direct foreign control lasted for over a century, interrupted by brief periods of Egyptian independence. You'd probably find it hard to get anything done if your local ruler spoke a completely different language and worshipped different gods. One authoritative historical fact is that the Achaemenid Persian Empire's conquest marked the first sustained period of foreign rule over Egypt since the Hyksos, fundamentally altering its political independence. You'd witness the imposition of Persian administrative systems, the collection of heavy taxes, and the presence of foreign garrisons. While Persian rule was not always oppressive, it was undeniably foreign, and Egyptian revolts against their new masters were not uncommon. Then in 332 BCE, a new, even more formidable power arrived: Alexander the Great. After conquering the Persian Empire, Alexander marched into Egypt and was welcomed as a liberator seen as restoring Egypt from Persian domination. He was even crowned pharaoh in Memphis, seemingly embracing Egyptian tradition. It's a bit like one superpower taking over, only to be replaced by another even more powerful one who somehow manages to be welcomed as a savior. Here's a quirky fact: Alexander the Great founded the city of Alexandria on the Mediterranean coast, which would become one of the greatest centers of learning and trade in the ancient world, completely overshadowing the ancient capitals further up the Nile. Historians still debate whether Persian rule was universally viewed as oppressive by Egyptians, or if some aspects of it, such as improved infrastructure or access to wider trade networks, might have been tolerated or even welcomed by certain segments of the population. Was it an absolute tyranny or a mixed bag of governance? So, as you observe Egypt under the successive reigns of Persian and Greek conquerors, you understand that this period of foreign rule marked a profound transformation. The millennia-old tradition of native pharaohs came to a definitive end, ushering in a new era where Egypt, while still rich in its ancient heritage, was increasingly governed by outsiders, forever changing its political destiny. From the conquests of Alexander the Great, your journey through ancient Egypt enters its final Hellenistic chapter with the Ptolemaic dynasty, a period ruled by Greek pharaohs. Imagine a line of Macedonian rulers, descendants of Alexander's generals who adopted the ancient traditions of Egypt's pharaohs, yet simultaneously introduced Greek culture, language, and administrative practices, creating a fascinating blend of two powerful civilizations. This was a unique fusion where the Nile met the Aegean. The Ptolemaic dynasty was founded by Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander the Great's most trusted generals, who declared himself pharaoh of Egypt in 305 BCE. This dynasty ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years, until the death of Cleopatra VII in 30 BCE. Unlike previous foreign rulers who merely annexed Egypt, the Ptolemies actively embraced many aspects of pharaonic kingship. They built Egyptian-style temples, commissioned hieroglyphic inscriptions, and participated in Egyptian religious rituals, all to legitimize their rule in the eyes of the native population. At the same time, they fostered a vibrant Hellenistic culture, making Alexandria their capital, a beacon of Greek learning, scholarship, and trade. One authoritative historical fact is that the Ptolemaic dynasty was the longest and most successful of the Hellenistic kingdoms established after the death of Alexander the Great, largely due to Egypt's immense agricultural wealth and strategic location. You'd witness the fascinating cultural hybridity. Greek became the language of administration and scholarship, coexisting with ancient Egyptian demotic and hieroglyphic scripts. Ptolemaic pharaohs were depicted in both traditional Egyptian pharaonic style and in more Hellenistic, realistic Greek portraiture. Alexandria boasted the famous Library of Alexandria, a center of unparalleled knowledge, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. It's a bit like a modern nation suddenly deciding its rulers should all wear traditional ceremonial outfits from 1,000 years ago, while simultaneously building cutting-edge research facilities. You probably wouldn't survive trying to navigate Alexandrian society without speaking both Egyptian and Koine Greek. Here's a quirky fact. The Ptolemaic pharaohs, despite their Greek origins, adopted the ancient Egyptian practice of sibling marriage, marrying their brothers or sisters, a tradition intended to keep the royal bloodline pure and legitimate their divine status, much like their native Egyptian predecessors. This led to a fascinating and sometimes problematic set of family dynamics. Historians still debate whether the Ptolemaic pharaohs genuinely embraced Egyptian culture and religion, or if their adoption of pharaonic traditions was primarily a cynical political strategy to appease the native Egyptian population and secure their rule. Was it sincere cultural adoption or strategic propaganda? So, as you immerse yourself in the world of the Ptolemaic dynasty, you're witnessing the final fascinating chapter of Egypt's pharaonic rule. The Hittite Greek pharaohs created a unique cultural synthesis blending ancient Egyptian traditions with Hellenistic vibrancy, leaving behind a legacy of intellectual achievement, architectural grandeur, and a dynasty that brought Egypt into the wider Mediterranean world, setting the stage for its ultimate encounter with Rome. From the Hellenistic grandeur of the Ptolemaic dynasty, your journey through ancient Egypt inexorably leads to its most famous and ultimately tragic ruler, Cleopatra VII, the last of the pharaohs. Imagine a queen of immense charisma, intelligence, and ambition, who, despite her Greek lineage, passionately embraced her role as the true successor to Egypt's ancient pharaohs, attempting to preserve her kingdom's independence against the relentless might of the Roman Republic. She was a legend in her own time and remains so today. Cleopatra VII, Philopator, who reigned from 51 to 30 BCE, was the last active pharaoh of Ptolemaic Egypt, though Greek by ethnicity, a direct descendant of Ptolemy. She was the only Ptolemaic ruler to truly master the Egyptian language and embrace Egyptian customs, presenting herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis. She famously formed powerful political and romantic alliances with two of Rome's most influential figures, first Julius Caesar, and after his assassination, Mark Antony. Her goal was always to protect Egypt's sovereignty and ensure its continued prosperity, leveraging her kingdom's immense wealth and strategic importance. You probably wouldn't survive trying to outwit her in a diplomatic negotiation. She was a formidable intellect. One authoritative historical fact is that Cleopatra was highly educated, fluent in several languages, including Egyptian, which was rare for her dynasty, and a skilled administrator and diplomat. You'd witness her legendary charm and persuasive powers as she captivated powerful Roman leaders, not just with her beauty, but with her intellect and political acumen. Her story is one of high-stakes political maneuvering, passionate romance, and ultimately a desperate struggle against an encroaching superpower. The naval battle of Actium in 31 BCE, where Cleopatra and Mark Antony's forces were decisively defeated by Octavian, later Emperor Augustus, sealed their fate and the fate of independent Egypt. It's a bit like watching the dramatic final act of a Shakespearean tragedy, but the stage is the entire Mediterranean world. Her resistance, while ultimately unsuccessful, cemented her image as a defiant queen refusing to submit to Roman conquest. Here's a quirky fact: Cleopatra had a keen interest in pharmacology and cosmetics. She allegedly authored books on poisons and beauty treatments, and even experimented with aphrodisiacs, reflecting a scientific curiosity that went beyond just ruling a kingdom. Historians still debate whether Cleopatra was a ruthless schemer, willing to sacrifice anyone for power, or a brilliant and tragic queen desperately fighting for her country's survival against overwhelming odds. Was she a manipulative temptress or a patriotic monarch? So as you reflect on the dramatic life and ultimate end of Cleopatra VII, you're witnessing the culmination of Egypt's pharaonic history. Her iconic reign as the last of the pharaohs was a dazzling yet doomed attempt to preserve ancient Egypt's independence, ending a millennia-long legacy and ushering in a new era under Roman rule. Her story remains a captivating testament to power, love, and loss on the grandest scale. From the tragic end of Cleopatra, your journey through ancient Egypt concludes with the inevitable Roman conquest, marking the definitive end of an era that had spanned millennia. Imagine the might of the Roman Republic, then Empire, absorbing the last great independent kingdom of the ancient Near East, transforming a land ruled by divine pharaohs into a mere province of a vast centralized power. It was the final chapter, a quiet, almost clinical absorption into a new world order. After the defeat of Cleopatra and Mark Antony at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, Octavian, who would soon become Emperor Augustus, marched into Egypt in 30 BCE. Unlike previous foreign conquerors who adopted the pharaonic mantle, Octavian treated Egypt as a personal possession, a vital breadbasket for Rome, rather than a kingdom with its own divine ruler. He famously declared Egypt a direct imperial province, ruled by a Roman prefect of equestrian rank, preventing senators from even visiting without special permission, effectively to prevent any ambitious Roman from using Egypt's vast wealth to challenge imperial authority. One authoritative historical fact is that Egypt became the personal granary of the Roman emperor, supplying a significant portion of Rome's grain supply, making its control vital for imperial stability. You'd witness the dramatic shift. The last vestiges of pharaonic rule faded. While Roman emperors were occasionally depicted in Egyptian temples wearing pharaonic regalia to appease the local populace, this was largely a formality, a nod to tradition, rather than a genuine adoption of divine kingship. The focus shifted entirely to extracting Egypt's immense agricultural wealth, particularly its grain, to feed the Roman populace and fund the imperial army. Taxes were levied, Roman laws enforced, and Egyptian administrative structures gradually replaced or subsumed into the Roman system. It's a bit like a proud ancient company being bought out by a global corporation, its unique brand slowly fading into the larger conglomerate's identity. You probably wouldn't survive trying to argue ancient Egyptian legal precedents against a Roman prefect. Here's a quirky fact. Despite the Roman conquest, traditional Egyptian religious practices and temple cults continued for centuries under Roman rule, though often with less state support. Some Roman emperors even commissioned new Egyptian-style temples or completed existing ones, reflecting a pragmatic approach to local religious sensibilities rather than a genuine belief in Egyptian gods. Historians still debate whether the Roman conquest of Egypt was a necessary act to consolidate imperial power and prevent rivals from exploiting its wealth, or if it was a tragic blow to a vibrant, independent civilization, irrevocably altering its unique cultural trajectory. Was it strategic necessity or cultural devastation? So as you witness the final absorption of Egypt into the Roman Empire, you understand that this marked the definitive end of an era. The millennia-long reign of the pharaohs from Narmer to Cleopatra finally concluded, leaving behind a land rich in ancient wonders, but one now governed by the pragmatic imperial hand of Rome, a lasting testament to the ebb and flow of ancient power. From the Roman subjugation of Egypt, your journey now turns inward, exploring the intricate mechanisms that allowed pharaohs to govern their vast kingdom, the Pharaoh's court, revealing its complex inner workings. Imagine a sprawling bureaucracy, a network of officials, scribes, and advisors, all dedicated to serving the divine king and maintaining the cosmic order of Ma'at. This wasn't just a royal household. It was the administrative engine of an entire civilization. At the apex of the court, directly serving the pharaoh, was the vizier. This was the highest official in ancient Egypt, essentially the pharaoh's prime minister, responsible for overseeing almost all aspects of the administration, including justice, treasury, agriculture, and public works. A pharaoh typically had two viziers, one for Upper Egypt and one for Lower Egypt, reflecting the unified but geographically distinct nature of the kingdom. Below the vizier was a vast network of scribes who were crucial for record-keeping, tax collection, and communicating royal decrees. Temples, too, formed a significant part of the court's influence with powerful high priests, often holding immense economic and political sway. One authoritative historical fact is that the vizier held immense power, often serving as the pharaoh's chief executive and judicial officer, demonstrating the highly centralized nature of Egyptian governance. You'd witness the constant flow of petitions reports and tribute passing through the court, all meticulously recorded by scribes on papyrus. The royal granaries overseen by court officials managed the vast agricultural output of the Nile Valley, ensuring food security for the populace and revenue for the state. Justice was dispensed in the pharaoh's name, often by the vizier, and the maintenance of temples was a continuous duty managed by a complex hierarchy of priests. It's a bit like a modern government but without computers, and with the added complication that the CEO is also a god. You probably wouldn't survive trying to forge a papyrus document. The scribes were meticulous, and the penalties were severe. Here's a quirky fact: some high-ranking court officials were also responsible for the pharaoh's personal care, including tasks like applying cosmetics or managing his wardrobe. This intimate access often granted them significant informal influence. Historians still debate whether the pharaoh's court, despite its elaborate bureaucracy, was genuinely efficient in managing the vast resources of Egypt, or if its complexity sometimes led to corruption and internal power struggles that ultimately weakened the central authority. Was it a well-oiled machine or a hotbed of intrigue? So as you peer into the inner workings of the pharaoh's court, you understand that the majestic image of the divine ruler was supported by a sprawling, sophisticated, and often intricate administrative system. It was this hidden machinery that allowed Egypt to thrive for millennia, a silent testament to the organizational genius beneath the gleaming monuments. From the complex bureaucracy of the pharaoh's court, your focus now shifts to the very heart of the succession, the royal family, and the intricate dance of power and succession. Imagine a system where the next ruler wasn't just chosen by birthright, but often through a complex web of divine legitimization, political maneuvering, and, sometimes, ruthless intrigue. The stability of Egypt hinged on the orderly transfer of power, a process fraught with its own unique challenges. Succession to the throne was primarily hereditary, passing from father to son. However, it wasn't always a straightforward process. The pharaoh typically had a great royal wife, who was often also his sister or half-sister, a practice intended to maintain the purity of the royal bloodline and to emulate the divine sibling marriages of gods like Osiris and Isis. While her sons were usually preferred heirs, the actual successor could be a son from a lesser wife, or even a non-royal individual, if the pharaoh died without a suitable direct male heir, or if political circumstances dictated. This often led to power struggles among competing factions within the court, particularly when a pharaoh died unexpectedly or left a young, inexperienced heir. One authoritative historical fact is that while primogeniture inheritance by the eldest son was the general rule, a pharaoh's choice of successor, the influence of powerful queens or political maneuvering could, and often did, alter the line of succession. You'd witness the intense focus on ensuring a legitimate heir, with the birth of a royal son being a cause for great celebration. The education of royal princes was meticulous, preparing them for their future divine role, encompassing everything from administration and military strategy to religious rituals. However, the system wasn't foolproof. The early death of a pharaoh, the ambition of a vizier, or the strength of a powerful queen mother could all influence who ultimately ascended to the throne. It's a bit like a very high-stakes family business, but the business controls an entire country, and the shareholders are gods. You probably wouldn't survive trying to subtly suggest a change in the line of succession. That was considered treason. Here's a quirky fact: some pharaohs had so many wives and children that ensuring a clear line of succession was incredibly complex. Ramesses II, for example, had over 100 children, leading to a long queue of potential heirs, many of whom he outlived. Historians still debate whether the practice of royal sibling marriage primarily served to reinforce the pharaoh's divine status and mimic divine unions, or if it also played a practical role in consolidating power and wealth within the ruling family. Was it sacred tradition or a strategic consolidation of power? So, as you consider the dynamics of the royal family and the complexities of power and succession, you understand that the stability of Egypt's millennia-long rule was a continuous act of delicate balance. The figure of the pharaoh was divine, but his earthly succession was a very human drama played out amidst tradition, ambition, and the constant imperative to secure Egypt's future. From the intricate dynamics of the royal family, your journey through ancient Egypt now expands to encompass the lives of the vast majority of its inhabitants, the pharaoh's subjects, and a glimpse into their everyday life. Imagine a world where your existence was inextricably linked to the Nile, the agricultural cycle, and the divine will of your pharaoh, a life far removed from the royal splendor yet vital to the functioning of the empire. This was the silent engine that powered the glory of Egypt. For most ancient Egyptians, life revolved around agriculture, primarily along the fertile banks of the Nile. The annual inundation of the river, which deposited rich, fertile silt, dictated the rhythm of their lives, planting, after the flood reseeded, tending crops through the dry season, and then harvesting. Their diet was largely based on bread and beer, supplemented by vegetables, fish, and occasional meat. Homes were typically modest, built from mud brick designed to be cool in the hot climate. While the pharaoh and the elite lived in luxury, the common people lived simply, their lives dictated by the land and the seasons. One authoritative historical fact is that over 80% of the ancient Egyptian population was directly involved in agriculture, making farming the backbone of their society and economy. You'd witness families working together in the fields, sowing seeds, irrigating crops, and bringing in the harvest. Their days were long and laborious, but punctuated by religious festivals, family gatherings, and simple pleasures. For those not directly farming, there were artisans, craftsmen, and laborers, many of whom were conscripted for public works projects like temple or tomb construction during the inundation season when farming was impossible. While not enslaved in the Roman sense, they were obligated to provide labor for the state. It's a bit like living in a society where everyone's main job is dictated by the river, and then during your off-season you get called up for a massive multi-decade construction project. You probably wouldn't survive trying to skip out on your labor duties to the pharaoh. That was not looked upon kindly. Here's a quirky fact: despite their arduous lives, ancient Egyptians had a strong appreciation for leisure. Wall paintings often depict ordinary people enjoying banquets, playing board games like sonnet dancing, and listening to music. They even enjoyed swimming in the Nile. Historians still debate whether the lives of common Egyptians were characterized by oppressive toil and poverty, or if they enjoyed a relatively stable and secure existence under a benevolent, if authoritarian, pharaoh compared to other ancient societies. Was it a life of drudgery or surprising contentment? So as you glimpse the everyday life of the Pharaoh's subjects, you understand that the grandeur of Egypt was built on the backs of its hardworking people. Their quiet dedication, their reliance on the rhythms of the Nile, and their unwavering belief in the divine order sustained a civilization that continues to awe us, a testament to the enduring human spirit, even in the shadow of giants. From the daily routines of common Egyptians, your journey now delves into the profound heart of their beliefs, pharaonic burials, revealing the elaborate journey to afterlife. Imagine a civilization so utterly convinced of an eternal existence beyond death that they dedicated immense resources, meticulous rituals, and monumental structures to ensure their rulers' successful passage to and comfortable dwelling in the next world. This wasn't just a funeral, it was the ultimate cosmic transition. For the pharaohs, death was not an end, but a transformation, a critical transition to become one with the gods, particularly Osiris, and to continue their divine role in the afterlife. To ensure this, an incredibly complex and prolonged series of rituals and preparations was undertaken. The most famous of these was mummification, a painstaking process lasting 70 days, designed to preserve the body as a vessel for the K life force and B personality soul to return to. Organs were carefully removed and preserved in canopic jars, the body dried with natron salt, and then wrapped in hundreds of layers of linen bandages, often with amulets placed between the layers for protection. One authoritative historical fact is that the mummification process, particularly for pharaohs and high-ranking nobles, involved the removal of internal organs, except the heart, which was left in place, and the use of natron salt to desiccate the body, preventing decay. You'd witness the immense effort involved in preparing the pharaoh's tomb, whether it was a pyramid, a rock-cut tomb in the Valley of the Kings, or a more modest burial. These tombs were not just graves, they were eternal homes, meticulously decorated with hieroglyphic texts, spells, and scenes depicting the pharaoh's journey through the underworld and his triumphant rebirth. They were filled with vast quantities of grave goods, furniture, jewelry, food, chariots, and even smaller statues of servants, shabtis, all believed to be necessary for the pharaoh's comfort and continued enjoyment in the afterlife. It's a bit like packing for an eternal vacation, but you need to bring absolutely everything you own just in case. You probably wouldn't survive being caught trying to sneak a peek into a pharaoh's newly sealed burial chamber. That was a one-way ticket to a very unpleasant afterlife yourself. Here's a quirky fact. The brain, unlike the heart, was considered relatively unimportant for the afterlife, and was typically removed during mummification by being pulled out through the nostrils with a hook. Imagine being the person whose job it was to do that. Historians still debate whether the elaborate and resource-intensive nature of pharaonic burials primarily reflected a genuine religious belief in the afterlife and the pharaoh's divine role, or if it also served as a powerful tool of political propaganda demonstrating the immense wealth and authority of the reigning monarch to his subjects. Was it sincere piety or calculated display? So as you contemplate the intricate details of Achaean pharaonic burials, you're witnessing a civilization's profound commitment to eternity, their elaborate preparations for a journey to afterlife were a testament to their unwavering faith in a cosmic continuation transforming death itself into a final magnificent act of kingship. It's a grand, solemn promise of endless existence carved in stone and shrouded in mystery. From the intricate rituals of burial, your journey through ancient Egypt now turns to the most enduring symbols of pharaonic power, the Sphinx and monuments, revealing their enduring legacy in shaping our understanding of this ancient civilization. Imagine colossal stone figures and soaring temples built millennia ago, still standing today, silent witnesses to the rise and fall of empires, their very presence commanding awe and inspiring endless fascination. They are the ultimate billboards carved in stone, still advertising the power of long-dead kings. The Great Sphinx of Giza, a mythical creature with the body of a lion and the head of a human, believed to be Pharaoh Khafre, is perhaps the most famous and enigmatic of these monuments. Carved from a single massive outcrop of limestone, it stands guardian over the Giza Plateau, symbolizing the pharaoh's strength and wisdom. Beyond the Sphinx, the numerous temples, obelisks, and rock-cut tombs scattered across Egypt represent an unparalleled architectural and artistic achievement. These weren't just buildings. They were sacred spaces, eternal homes, and monumental expressions of the pharaoh's divine connection and his role in maintaining cosmic order. One authoritative historical fact is that the construction of these colossal monuments required advanced knowledge of engineering mathematics and stoneworking, demonstrating the sophisticated capabilities of ancient Egyptian civilization. You'd feel the sheer scale of these structures designed to dwarf human visitors and convey the overwhelming power of the pharaohs and the gods. The intricate hieroglyphic inscriptions covering their walls tell tales of conquests, religious devotion, and royal genealogies, serving as both historical records and religious texts. The artistry from detailed reliefs to colossal statues is breathtaking, designed to inspire awe and devotion. It's a bit like stepping into a vast open-air gallery of divine propaganda, but every piece is also a profound work of art. You probably wouldn't survive trying to doodle a mustache on the Sphinx. Such an act would be considered the ultimate sacrilege. Here's a quirky fact. The nose of the Great Sphinx is famously missing, leading to many theories, including deliberate defacement by Napoleon's soldiers or Ottoman Turks. However, the most widely accepted theory attributes its loss to natural erosion or possibly deliberate destruction by a Sufi Muslim iconoclast in the 14th century, who saw it as a pagan idol. Historians still debate the original purpose and symbolism of the Great Sphinx. While commonly associated with Pharaoh Khafre and his funerary complex, its exact meaning and the reasons for its unique form continue to be subjects of scholarly discussion and archaeological investigation. Was it a simple guardian or a complex religious statement? So as you gaze upon Osiris, the Sphinx and monuments, you understand that their enduring legacy extends far beyond mere stone. They are the silent, towering witnesses to a civilization's profound beliefs, its artistic genius, and its unwavering dedication to the eternal power of the pharaohs, continuing to captivate our imaginations and stand as timeless symbols of ancient Egypt's grandeur. They are truly the face of a forgotten empire. From the enduring stone guardians, your journey through ancient Egypt now takes a fascinating detour into modern popular culture as you confront the enduring myth of the Curse of the Pharaohs, a tantalizing yet often debunked source of modern myth and superstition. Imagine the hushed whispers and sensational headlines surrounding archaeological discoveries, promising supernatural retribution for disturbing ancient tombs. It's a gripping narrative, but one rooted more in fiction than fact. The Curse of the Pharaohs is a popular belief that anyone who disturbs the mummies of ancient Egyptian pharaohs, especially their tombs, will suffer misfortune, illness, or even death. This myth gained immense traction after the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon. When Lord Carnarvon died just months after the tomb's opening from an infected mosquito bite, the press, eager for a sensational story, quickly linked his death to a supposed curse, ignoring that many others involved in the excavation lived long lives. This sparked a global fascination with the idea of ancient curses fueled by popular fiction and Hollywood films. One authoritative historical fact is that there is no scientific or archaeological evidence to support the existence of a curse of the pharaohs. The deaths and misfortunes attributed to it can invariably be explained by natural causes or coincidence. You'd hear the dramatic tales, mysterious illnesses, strange accidents, and untimely deaths befalling those connected to tomb excavations. The myth often thrives on misinterpretations or exaggerations of real events, twisting them into supernatural phenomena. For example, some attribute unexplained illnesses to ancient molds or bacteria within tombs, which, while a real, though manageable risk for archaeologists, doesn't constitute a curse. It's a bit like believing your computer crashes because it's haunted by the ghost of a disgruntled pixel. You probably wouldn't survive trying to convince a sensationalist newspaper editor to stick to the facts. They loved a good curse story. Here's a quirky fact. Despite the myth, many archaeologists and researchers have worked in Egyptian tombs for decades, without ill effect, often living to old age. Howard Carter himself, the lead archaeologist who opened Tutankhamun's tomb, lived for another 16 years after the discovery, dying of lymphoma at age 64, hardly a victim of a curse. Historians still debate whether the enduring popularity of the Curse of the Pharaohs myth reflects a romantic human desire for mystery and supernatural explanations, or if it was initially a clever public relations tactic by early archaeologists to deter grave robbers and protect their finds. Was it genuine superstition or strategic deterrence? So, as you consider the thrilling yet ultimately unfounded legend of the Curse of the Pharaohs, you understand that it's a testament to our ongoing fascination with the mysteries of ancient Egypt. This captivating, modern myth continues to shroud the pharaohs in an aura of supernatural power, even as science works to debunk its claims, proving that sometimes the stories we tell are as powerful as the history itself. From the tantalizing myths of curses, your journey through ancient Egypt now culminates in a profound realization: the pharaohs' enduring allure and their captivating hold on our imagination. Imagine a civilization that, despite being thousands of years removed from our own, continues to fascinate, inspire, and mystify, drawing us back to its towering monuments, enigmatic rulers, and profound beliefs about life, death, and the cosmos. They may be gone, but their presence is undeniably still felt, a ghostly echo across the millennia. The pharaohs, their pyramids, and their gilded treasures hold an almost unparalleled place in the human imagination. Their monumental achievements in architecture, their complex religious beliefs, their unique art style, and the very concept of a divine king continue to spark wonder and curiosity. From the earliest adventurers and scholars who rediscovered their ruins to the countless books, films, and documentaries of today, ancient Egypt exerts a powerful magnetic pull. We are drawn to the scale of their ambition, the depth of their devotion to the afterlife, and the sheer longevity of their civilization. It's a bit like an ancient epic blockbuster movie that just keeps playing, captivating new audiences with every generation. One authoritative historical fact is that Egyptology as an academic discipline truly flourished in the 19th and 20th centuries, fueled by major archaeological discoveries like the Rosetta Stone and Tutankhamun's tomb, which brought ancient Egypt into global popular consciousness. You'd feel the echoes of their presence in countless ways, in the very design of our architecture, in the enduring symbolism of pyramids and sphinxes, and in our continued quest to understand the mysteries of life and death. The pharaohs, as figures of immense power and divine connection, offer a fascinating counterpoint to modern leadership, reminding us of a time when rulers were seen not just as political figures, but as cosmic intermediaries. Their fascination with the afterlife prompts us to consider our own mortality and what lies beyond. It's a compelling reminder that even across vast stretches of time, certain human questions and aspirations remain universal. You probably wouldn't survive a formal ancient Egyptian quiz night, but you'd definitely have a richer understanding of history. Here's a quirky fact: some modern conspiracy theories still propose outlandish explanations for Egyptian monuments, like alien involvement in pyramid construction, rather than acknowledging the ingenuity of ancient human engineers. This demonstrates the powerful, almost mythical grip that the pharaohs and their achievements still hold over our collective imagination, sometimes leading to bizarre conclusions. Historians still debate whether the enduring popular appeal of ancient Egypt is primarily due to its dramatic kings and monumental architecture, or if it's the more profound philosophical questions it raises about divinity, eternity, and human endeavor that truly resonate across time. Is it spectacle or philosophy that captivates us most? So, as the final scene of ancient Egypt fades from your mind, understand that the Pharaoh's enduring allure is a testament to their indelible mark on human history. Their captivating hold on our imagination is a constant reminder of a civilization that pushed the boundaries of human achievement, believed profoundly in the divine, and left behind a legacy that continues to inspire awe, curiosity, and a sense of profound connection to a truly remarkable past. They are the silent golden thread weaving through the tapestry of our shared human story. The ancient world, with its powerful pharaohs and towering monuments, now softly recedes into the quiet stillness of your mind. Let the imagery gentle dissolve, the sands settle, and the whispers of history soften into the background hum of your fan. No need to worry about desert heat or ancient curses now. Those stories have played their part. Just let the peace of these old tales wash over you, a comforting blanket woven from millennia of human endeavor and belief. The pharaohs sleep soundly in their tombs, and soon you will too, knowing that you've journeyed through their incredible world. Sweet dreams. Good night.